7:05. I'll call the meeting to order. We've had some, not scheduling difficulties, but some scheduling accommodations here. We got word from Kat that she's gonna have trouble making it for 7 exactly, so she has to be pushed off later. And it turns out Tony Schoner has a hard stop at 7:30, so we're gonna take him first and we'll move the budget item to the end of item 1 on the agenda. So first up, if we can promote Tony up.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm juggling my 2 devices here. And I see Tony.
And Kristen, thank you, by the way, for taking this on. This is a huge.
Oh, no worries. I do this all day, every day. So Tony, are you there?
Oh, there he is. Okay, so Tony, you should be with us now. Can you hear us? Oh.
Yes, I can. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for accommodating my constrained schedule.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, well, I'll just go through this really quickly. Last night was town moderator hosts every year a pre-town meeting. I was unable to attend. We only got the invite the day before. Lisa, thankfully, had some time available and she went. And what we learned was town council has declared that memorandums of understanding between the CPC and any town entity are illegal, in his words, as I understand it. I would quibble with that somewhat, but it puts us in a somewhat tough spot that we don't have to hash out right now and burning up Tony's time. So what I propose we do is we go through and we talk about all the things that we would include in a memorandum of understanding, none of which are particularly burdensome, just sort of nuts and bolts type process issues for when the project's going forward. We talk about all of that, and then afterwards we can talk about how we'll go forward, both at this town meeting and subsequent town meetings with this new guidance from town council. So with that being said, Freddie has been the one who's sort of kept track of what we've spoken about at various meetings. And I would ask her, Freddie, if you wouldn't mind to guide us through the issues that you recall that we would typically include in a memorandum of understanding for the golf course.
Okay. Sorry, without stealing what you're going to talk about later,
Yeah.
Ben. So I was going to have draft ones drawn up, but it became somewhat evident that that was not a good expenditure of my time.
Correct.
So I didn't. So I didn't go through all the records to create what this is. I will share with this. I did pull up, and I didn't email it out, a draft MOU, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see this. So let me see if I can find a draft one and email it, but I can't do that and talk because I don't.
Well, while you're doing that, Freddie, I'll go through just some of the more basic elements that we typically include. Number one, on a construction project like at the golf course, we ask that requests for payment from the contractor be submitted monthly, and that those be submitted directly to our consultant, Freddie Gillespie. And I would ask that you CC me on that submittal. And then second, the other big one is we ask for an update every 6 months. Just, it's so easy these days to attend a meeting by Zoom. And just a quick update, here's what we've accomplished. Here's what we expect to accomplish in the coming months. Here's how the budget's holding up. And just a time for the committee to ask a couple of questions. Very low impact, 10 or 15 minutes generally. And it keeps us up to date on what's going on. So those are the 2 things we'll be asking, we would have put in the memorandum of understanding for each of the 3 projects. In the case of the golf course, we would have put in something about work to be performed to the standards of Audubon International. We managed to put that into the warrant article itself, so that's taken care of. And those are the big things. If Freddie has found anything else as she goes through her records, we can certainly discuss that.
So
Yes.
I know we discussed this, and this is coming from my perspective on the Open Space Preservation Commission. I know I brought it up, but you know, there's an open project that got started and came to a halt. And I know we put in the warrant article that the irrigation system would be conform to the standards of the Audubon International. But what my memory, but you know, that's with my perspective, is that we also wanted the golf course committee to start working on the certification, which requires having a committee set up and creating a plan, which is certainly doable by the time the construction starts, that they would have a plan in place. And even if the plan isn't complete, because I know things always can happen, that you would expect the plan to be significantly worked on. You know, there's a committee that Tony and I talked about this, and I also talked about it with another rep from the golf course. The golf committee was starting to set up a process to move this forward, so that you have to have a committee and you have to set up a plan to address all the issues that the Audubon International requires. And to me, that would be something I would have advocated be in the MOU, that be a component of the funding, because, you know, many grant processes, you know, you have to be in compliant with your prior grants before going for another one. And this one sort of just got left by the wayside. So
Yes.
and I don't know how you address that under the current situation, or what, if Tony has any thoughts, and it was the project of the golf committee, but working with the Open Space Preservation Commission, and, you know, we're ready to roll up our sleeves and start working on it and helping to move it forward.
Great, and I would, before Tony jumps in, I would offer an answer to your question. Is one of the ways that we address it is just through, everyone involved here, Open Space, CPC, and the Golf Course Committee are all, frankly, folks who are we can count on to act in good faith and take this seriously. It's a town meeting warrant article that was approved at town meeting. It's been funded, and now that work is going to be beginning at the golf course, I think this is the time to get that going. And I would hope that, and I would expect the golf course committee would feel the same way, to get this taken care of.
Ben, I have a question.
Yes.
And Freddie, I just learned all about last night recently, so apologize if this is an uninformed question, but I think there's a question as to what happened last night and the determination that's been made after all these years, right? This isn't something new. Right. So it's interesting that it's coming up now in light of some other articles that the board would want to pursue, right? Agreed. The timing is not coincidental. And one would say, should we get a second opinion? Obviously, we're not. Like, I don't even know if that's allowed. I forget the rules on one board getting a lawyer to... We would
seek a second opinion, but it would be coming from the person who offered the first one.
Right, which that's a little messed up, but let me just finish my question real quick. I think we should still do it. I think we should still do it and say, look, we understand what legal said. We've done it this way for however many years. We believe it's good faith to the town to do this. We need to figure out if what our lawyers saying, I think what I read it was that we couldn't sign a legal document on behalf of the town. So we were trying to explore an MOU with Jim, and so maybe that's a specific instance, and we're just saying, oh, that's everyone, and we don't know, right? We haven't had the time. This is coming up 2 weeks, right? Like, why coming up now? Yeah, again, coincidental, right?
It's a lot to take on, Kristen. I agree with you, and I too, I'm curious what was driving the bus on this. We find ourselves in a difficult position that I think we're probably have to spend a little bit of time talking about tonight. Because I know Tony's schedule only gives him another 15 minutes here. I just want to make sure that we can get through our discussion with Tony before 7:30, and then I think we should dive into how we're going to handle this situation.
Yeah, so I guess my question to Tony is, and I appreciate that, Ben, and I should have been more clear. I guess my question as we're talking to Tony is, if we chose to still go down this road, because it just is an agreement of good faith between our organizations, is that something you guys would be open and willing to do?
Ben, can I jump in here? I
Yeah,
think
please,
I can
Lisa.
better
Yeah.
answer Kristen's question than putting Tony on the spot.
Yeah.
So Kristen, basically Jay Tellerman said that he is going to recommend to town meeting to strike that language. So whether we decide to keep it or not, so he has advised Tony, he's advised Kat, and he advised Jim to not sign because they don't have the authority to sign or enter into an illegal agreement, is what he said. So
And I agree with that. I say this has no legal binding, right? Because we're not going to get signatures. But it's our way of saying we don't agree that this is the right way to do the process. We're not going to change our ways until we're sure, because this is just meant to be. But anyways, yeah. But
No, I've got a lot to say in this too. Grant, do you? I see you had your hand up for a while.
No, thanks. Yeah, I have a question just regarding the text of the golf course article.
Yes.
So regarding the Audubon, I was just going back in the minutes from the last meeting, and we had added this language about to see if the town will vote to appropriate X amount of dollars for the installation of a new irrigation system in accordance with the requirements of the Audubon International golf course in the warrant article.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, I wasn't aware about what Freddie was talking about in terms of creating a committee and going about that process, but
there was an article passed 4 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago, back at when the golf course was acquired, that required the golf course to be certified through the Audubon International program.
So I guess what I was driving at is I know that there's a time limit on the warrant article in terms of the time in which the work has to be completed in. And so I'm wondering, does that also apply to the Audubon standards?
No,
There's not a time limit. Only if we did not impose one. That's a recent development here on the committee, actually putting a sunset date on projects. This year is really the first year we've started doing that. So there's no expiration date on that article.
In the article that we passed about the golf course this year, I thought the work had to be completed within.
Oh no, the
3
one
years.
this year. The article that was passed 4 or 5 years ago that required certification of the golf course in the Audubon International program. That article doesn't have a time limit, and it's only this year we've adopted that best practice, putting a time limit on projects. So Freddie was saying that, as a recipient of potentially more than one grant, past grants should be in order as future grants go forward, and that this is a common arrangement amongst granting agencies.
Okay, thanks.
Now, I'm sorry, Tony. A question was asked of you, and then we all got to talking here. And I think I'll summarize was in terms of getting the committee together in restarting the work for the Audubon International certification. I think a couple of us had suggested that we're dealing with folks here who we know work in good faith and are great partners in this. And does this sound like something achievable from the perspective of the golf course committee?
If the question is, does it seem achievable to put in place this committee to accommodate the Audubon International standards, then yes, this seems very reasonable. We've had several discussions about it. We've looked at literature. This seems reasonable that this will occur. And I completely agree. There's good faith here to follow through on this. And, MOU or not, we've said, we would pursue this and so we intend to do that.
Great, thank you. And you've heard a couple of members speak on this. We don't know exactly how we'll be proceeding with the MOU situation, but I will say we are going to do our absolute best to proceed in a way that allows these articles to make it to town meeting floor so we can get a positive vote from town meeting. That's our goal here. So our discussion after we finish this particular agenda item is going to revolve around how best to do that, given these new facts on the ground. And I think there's a way forward that will allow us to do that. So does anyone, one possible outcome is that in lieu of an MOU, Tony, we have this discussion here that we've had where we've talked about, sort of expectations going forward, the nuts and bolts stuff of payment request submittals and all that kind of stuff, and getting back on board with the previous warrant article. This may be our MOU. It's just this, we'll call it a face-to-face chat, but just making sure that we're all aware of what's going on, which was frankly the intent of the MOU anyway.
Certainly, my opinion, speaking on behalf of the golf committee, monthly payments and periodic updates to you guys and following through on the Audubon International, these are all perfectly acceptable things to follow through.
Thank you. I see a hand up from Freddie.
Hi. Some of the other things we typically document in the MOU is going over what's already in the warrant article, but just to make it really clear about the contingency funds and other things like that. So what I would recommend is that, depending on how the conversation goes later, that we write a letter of what the expectations, at the minimum, the expectations of the CPC are, so that it is in writing and the golf committee has a document stating what the expectations are. The difference is it's not agreed upon from both sides and at this point, if it's not an MOU, you don't need the other side to agree. And it's just sort of what we've already talked about. There's nothing here that you haven't discussed in the meetings during the application review and in the application. So I think that would be a good thing to do, to have a letter.
Freddie, that's something that occurred to me this afternoon. I've been thinking about this all day, is that, if nothing else, do exactly that. We put together what would be the MOU document, but it's simply a letter from community preservation to each of the grant recipients, so that these things are memorialized. That being said, does anyone have anything further for Tony or regarding this application?
Nope.
Okay. So let's see. I don't see Kat yet in the audience. I think now is a good time to start talking about the current situation.
Okay, I'm gonna, before I step away then, so
Please.
thank you all again. You guys have been great. I really appreciate, your intentions and your support on this project. If something else comes up between now and the town meeting that we need to talk about, please let me know.
Thank you, and vice versa. If you need to get in touch with us, by all means, please do. And thanks for coming tonight.
All right, have a nice evening.
You too.
Thanks.
Wait, okay.
Okay, so what we've learned is that Attorney Tellerman is going to.
Ben, Ellen has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ellen, please.
Sorry, I was trying to catch Tony before he jumped off about if we're going to talk about the presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. We got all swept up in this MOU stuff. Let's see. I think one way we could address that is one or two of us could perhaps be a subcommittee of sorts to work with the golf course committee on a presentation, or let's see. Well, we're going to be talking about future meetings. I don't know that we'll be having a meeting before town meeting, but that would be one way of doing that.
It
Ben,
would not
they
be a
said-
subcommittee.
Excuse
Sorry.
Ben,
I
it would
just-
not be a subcommittee.
Yeah, I like a subcommittee, but I mean, obviously it wouldn't be one. We can't really create one. But if a couple of us were to work with the golf course committee, that would be one way of.
Do we
So
have
Ben,
to
Tony
create the-
said
oh,
last
go
night
ahead.
that he does have a presentation, and it was
being ready to be finalized. They have to be to the town clerk by Monday. So
Okay, thank you,
they said
Lisa.
it's ready. It is ready to be finalized.
Okay,
Just a question on my part.
please, yeah.
I know that we are the sponsor of the article, but does that mean we actually have to present, like, do the presentation, or can we invite the representative from the golf course to actually go into the details?
Typically one of us, often the chair, but if somebody else wants to do it, by all means, raise your hand. We'll go up with the applicant, just to sort of stand at their shoulder, but it's really the applicant who does the presentation. We will also at times, when it looks like a presentation just isn't necessary, especially towards the end of a long town meeting, people honestly are put off by a presentation. They want to get out of there. And there have been a couple of times where we've advised somebody, you know what, just skip the presentation. We'll just move the article, and it's worked out that people just want to approve stuff and get out of there. So there's some sort of work on the fly. I see Freddie's hand up. Freddie?
You should reach out to Tony and request that if he has to have it to town clerk by Monday,
Mhm.
not a lot of time for him, but I don't know if you want to have someone here see it before it goes to town clerk, or at the minimum, have it sent to you when it goes to town clerk, because it's
Yeah.
CPC's warrant article. It's not the golf committee's warrant article. So you should know what's going to be presented on your article.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate if they could send to the whole committee, just so that we're all prepared.
Okay. Then we'll reach out to Tony either this evening or tomorrow morning and ask him to forward a copy.
Do you want to have it before it goes to town clerk? And
Yes.
the committee can't discuss it as a committee, but everyone could send me any comments that we could then,
Yes.
I don't know, then I would do what with them? If they,
Forward them to the golf course committee. I guess with the understanding that it'll be a crunch for them to incorporate them, but perhaps over the weekend, if it's a question of, edits to a PowerPoint or something, it could maybe be taken care of and help get a better presentation together.
I don't know that there would be necessary, but maybe you would want one member of the committee to have review and communicate with the golf. I mean, that's not an open meeting law, or maybe it is, because it's everyone on the committee.
That's
No,
the
it's not.
problem. I think if everyone has communicates to one member, we're at least running really close to the line in a way that makes me
All
uncomfortable.
right, so I will take that on. You all send me, if we can get it before town clerk, and I will send them to Tony. And then if there are any comments, and I'm assuming we're not wordsmithing, and it's their project, their presentation, but if there's anything more that stands out that's not in compliance with CPA rules and regs and law, is what we're really kind of looking for, right? Does everyone?
Yeah, and if we see any important strategic issues, I'm sure they've made them, but I think there are a couple of really important points that help sell this particular project, and I'm sure they've incorporated them. But if for instance they didn't, then I would offer a comment.
Add this.
They
Okay.
hopefully they are getting some input, from other people as well, to your point on considerations. One question on, I don't know if I forget the order of the articles. Does anyone know offhand what CPC articles first?
Oh, God, I don't have the warrant in front of me.
It's fine. So irregardless, like going back to a conversation we had, or regardless, I guess, going back to a conversation that we had a couple months ago, and we still have this opportunity because who knows what's going to happen at town meeting with CPC lately, like after last night, who knows? I think we need to go a little bit proactively and at least come out with one thing for Southbrook Community Share and Care for what is CPC? Hey, heading into town meeting, you're going to be voting on articles, blah, 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 blah. We're not here to speak about those. We just want you to understand the role of CPC. And then something brief. And then alongside that, when the first article goes up and we go alongside to present it, and I have someone in mind here, and I don't think everyone's going to know who, it might be good to say, hey, we want to do an elevator speech, 60 seconds, like talk, like not, it's a pretty dry subject, but it's important to say, we just want you to understand why we're up here and what our role is in layman's terms. So we're going proactively to debunk anything else that might be said that night about our role. Our role is what it is to make sure that it's adhering. And I think we'd be foolish not to take the opportunity with this audience to give them the basics, like, you know, CPA funds 101. This is what you need to understand. CPC, this is what you need to understand. Quick, short, but like plant that seed up front. So if anyone starts accusing or whatever, that people understand the process.
Okay, yeah.
And while I would love to do that, I don't think I'm the best person to. I know the person I'm looking at that has a very good reputation and is trusted by the town, has been in a very public role. I would suggest that be the person who people would listen to and trust. Nothing against any of you all, but Lisa obviously, you know, is held in high regard with the town. Sorry, Lisa.
Can I jump in for a minute?
I vote
Yeah,
for
I see
Lisa.
your hand up, Freddie. Yep.
The first article is always the budget,
Yeah.
and that would be the place. And I'm not commenting on Kristen's, not my place to comment on Kristen's, but I would suggest what she is talking about, having an explanation. That could also be a handout. You can put a frequently asked question handout on the table, as well as saying something. And I would suggest saying it at the beginning of the budget. The first warrant article is the budget, but it's also your chair who usually puts articles on the floor. So just putting that out there.
Gotcha.
Yes, the handout is a fantastic idea because I don't know that town moderator would allow, well, you know, I wonder if the budget is going to be part of the consent agenda for that matter.
It is, Ben, it is.
It often is in years past, unless somebody puts a hold on it, which this year, who knows? It often, and that would sort of preclude us from speaking before that, unless we held it ourselves for that reason. So Lisa, you have your hand up. You have something you wanted to say.
Well, I just wanted to say that the order of the articles, Kristen, are that the town historic records is first, trails is second, and golf is third.
Got it. Thank you.
Ben, what about saying something, asking Paul if under reports at the start of town meeting, that maybe just take 2 minutes and say, pop up a fact sheet on the screen and just kind of go through it, you know? Again, that's just a suggestion.
Okay. No, I like that idea. I like that idea. I think an awful lot of people in town, I suspect the majority of people in town, really don't understand how community preservation works here in Southborough.
No idea. And Ben, I hope, you know, just in talking to my peers, right? Like I can't tell you how many times I've given the 60-second elevator speech and people are like, what? And Ben, I just hope my suggestion on Lisa is by no means to take any, like, it's nothing to do with you being as chair. You're a wonderful chair. I'm just literally going on like,
oh no, listen,
like,
I wasn't joking earlier. If folks want to do the talking at town meeting, thumbs up, you know.
It's just, she's probably the most recognizable, right? From being on the Board of Selectmen.
Absolutely. No, I think that sounds like a great idea. The handout also, because not to be critical, but town meeting can be a little bit boring sometimes. And one of the few things we have to do to entertain ourselves is actually read the handouts, I've found. So it would, I think, actually get read by a fair number of people in town. And then if Lisa were to speak on it, I'm more than happy to defer moving the article or whatever to facilitate that by all means, if the rest of the committee is on board with that. All right, while we're digesting that, we've got a lot to get through with this MOU situation that I think we should talk about before we get to the next two MOU discussions.
Hey, Ben,
Yeah,
before you move on, let's just finish that, wrap it up. If you're going to do a frequently asked question, short time to town meeting, who's
yeah.
going to write it?
Yeah, you've already got a whole ton on your plate, so I think it would fall to us on the committee. I'm happy to help out with it. If somebody else would like to work with me. And this would be simply describing how the surtax works, what things are fundable with it, under what authority do we act, and I think highlighting the fact that expenditures appropriations approved at town meeting are for funds that are already on hand, and they are not going to be raising anyone's taxes one red cent. That's a point that often gets lost and has come up at previous town meetings.
I'll just jump in and say, a lot of that info is in the PowerPoint, and if I shared it with whoever had it, that might be where you could, instead of reinventing the wheel,
Okay.
that could help somebody.
What PowerPoint, Freddie?
The annual presentation that you
Oh,
attended.
yeah.
I would just, I am happy to help, or if somebody else wants to do it, it's fine. I just think we need to think a little outside the box and not be so sterile. Somehow we have to find a way to make it a little bit interesting, like debunking the rumors or something like that. Like I said, I'm happy to help, but if somebody else wants to do it, whatever.
I was going to volunteer as well, so I'm happy to help take that on. And I think potentially, also highlighting, in addition to the facts, which I think are very important, some of the more popular funded projects in the past, to remind people what this goes towards.
Great
Just
idea.
be careful with that, because popular is popular.
So
Just put the Algonquin one on there, and that will.
Yeah.
Just only that one, and yeah, just kidding.
Okay. So, I mean, we can have up to 4 people working on this, as long as the work stays internal to this group. That group of 4 or less. Ellen and Kristen, you said you're interested in working on the handout. Anybody else? I've said that I too am more than happy to help out. And if Freddie were to forward that the PowerPoint, I think that would get us going a good distance of the way. So it could be the 3 of us, and then Lisa. I think that would give you, frankly, it would probably give you something to speak from. At least substantially so, if you were to speak at town meeting.
Okay. And I'm happy to do, to help as well, as long as we don't create a quorum issue. If there's a quorum issue, then obviously,
right.
I think it's important for you and Kristen, you've been on the committee the longest. So, you've been privy to a lot of the questions
4 is not a quorum.
that have come up. Okay, so I'd be happy to do it as well.
Okay, great. So that works. So if Grant and Brett, if you're okay with that.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Great. All right. So let's do that. Let's do that. Sounds good. All right.
Ben, can we just pause for a sec? We have 2 people in the audience, and I just want to make sure there's no questions.
Okay. Yep. Kat is here for her trails presentation. I don't recognize the other name, but if you wish to offer any comments or questions on what we've been speaking of so far, please use the raise hand function, and we'd be happy to promote you up.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, MOU stuff. Attorney Kellerman has said that he is going to inform town meeting that the requirement for signing an MOU is illegal. He's going to request that language be taken out of the article. That presents a big problem. You'll recall that we were very careful to condition our vote upon the exact language of the article, with the exception of Scrivener or clerical errors being fixed. But our vote was contingent on the exact language being present in the article. And the article, first, I don't believe the article can be changed on town meeting floor. Under the Community Preservation Act, the only change that can be made to an article on town meeting floor is the number, the dollar value of the appropriation can be changed downwards. That's the one change that can happen to a CPA article on town meeting floor, is my understanding.
What happens if he makes a motion to change it anyway?
Well, that's a good question.
Can we verify that somewhere, Ben, whether through Stewart or whomever, however? I mean, there's got to be a way.
Yeah.
What do other towns' articles say? If we find the vast majority has language like that, then there's a case to be made.
The
They
MOU,
won't.
so okay, a little history here on MOUs and CPA and DOR guidance. MOUs were we first started using them 5 years ago. Before then, no MOUs were used. They're not widely used throughout the Commonwealth. We're one of the first. I believe, in fact, Lynn Spencer, the architect who's worked on St. Mark's Bell Tower, the townhouse, and the town library, she is the chair of the CPC in her community. I believe after learning about it from us, her committee has adopted them. The intention is to capture what's been said in the meeting so that both sides are on the same page, and to take care of the procedural stuff regarding payment and checking in periodically and that kind of stuff. It's a document that's intended to help everybody out. It's not something that was ever intended to be pulled out and waved around in a courtroom to beat somebody over the head. Absolutely not the intention at all. I kind of cringe at Attorney Tellerman's suggestion that this is some form of contract. It's a memorandum of understanding. We all understand these facts, but I don't think we're swearing an oath or anything. It's just putting everything down on a page so we're all aware of our expectations. The Department of Revenue suggests that every appropriation of CPA funds be covered by a grant agreement. And I'll read through what the DOR says about grant agreements. This is from that IGR document. And it's certainly a very complete type of agreement. It's going to take quite a bit of work, if we were to go forward using this guidance, and I think it will make us feel very wistful for the days of MOUs if we go down this route. But anyhow, DOR says it is recommended that a community, in consultation with its legal counsel, develop and utilize a community preservation fund grant agreement to ensure completion of an approved project and implementation of the project's community preservation purpose. This is particularly important if a grant is made to a non-municipal department, individual, private, or nonprofit entity, or any entity, agency, or grantee over which municipality has no legal control, in order to protect the municipality's investment. Skipping ahead just a little bit. Communities should consider as appropriate the following provisions in grant agreements: name of grantee, non-assignability of grant, detailed description of any restoration, rehabilitation, or other work to be performed by grantee, construction specifications and standards, relevant historical rehabilitation standards, time periods for performance, total project budget, and listing of all funding sources required for project completion, requirement for commitment of total project funding sources before release of CPA funding, designation of who will inspect and approve any required work, provision for periodic release of funding payments as work is completed and approved, return of grant funds not used to the Community Preservation Fund, grantee reporting requirements, grantee matching fund requirements, timing of execution, delivery, and recording of required community preservation restriction documents or easements for public access use, remedies for any breach or non-performance of the grantee, including return of community preservation funds, designation of responsibility for continued maintenance of assets or improvements funded with community preservation funds, or any other requirement or condition of the grant. It's really interesting that we're told that an MOU is illegal. And yet that document, which clearly, I mean, in my mind is a contract, that is legal. It's funny. I like the way we're doing it with the MOU. I think it's a friendlier process. I think the grant agreement, we may have to go down that road, but as a one size fits all for every project, you know, there are smaller projects we work on where that might seem to be a little bit of overkill. It's a shame that we're in this position. So this is all to say, my fear is that if we insist on the inclusion of this language that an MOU be signed, that it's going to seriously impair our ability to get these articles passed. I think no matter what argument we make, we're going to have town council saying that it's illegal. And I am, it's within MGL chapter 44B, where it talks about changes that can be made by the legislative body to the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee. In our case, the legislative body is town meeting. The only change that can be made to our recommendation, and our recommendation in this case is an article, is the lowering of the appropriation number. I've been thinking about that. That comes right out of 44B. So it's my recommendation that this year we revote the articles without the MOU language. We go back to where we were 6 years ago before we had started doing this. We have 3 projects, each with a town department or agency, which I don't know that it gives us a little more control, but there's more oversight because there are town entities involved. And as Freddie suggested, I think we capture everything that would be in an MOU in a letter from CPC to the grant recipients saying that these are the expectations. I think ultimately, because of other language that's in the article, that the funds are distributed under the direction of Community Preservation Committee and Town Treasurer, that in fact gives us some enforcement authority, because you know we're the ones who have to approve each payment. So we'll be able to look at each payment and say, if there's a problem, hey, wait a second, this is not CPA fundable. I think it's an imperfect solution, and it's frustrating that we're in this situation. But my big fear is the articles either get pulled or fail because of this MOU issue, and that will make CPC, it will be a really bad look for us. That's my worry. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts on this.
I'll be short and to the point, and I want to get this out because it's controversial, but as people are responding, I'd like you to include your response. I feel like this is, call me a conspiracy theorist, that's fine. I've been volunteering for too long. It's convenient to bring this up last second for the very reason you just said. It forces kind of our hand to say, well, either you do this or they're not going to pass, and now you've screwed everybody out of this money. I get that, but it's also setting a precedent. And we know for affordable housing, this is something that they do not like, the MOU, right? We know that the town just wants all that money just handed over. That takes away from the checks and balance, which is what the whole point of what we are is meant to be, right? The checks and balance. In any government, like you have that, and that's what this is, and this is what the committee is. I think this is tied to the fact that they want to then go move, and they have said that they want to automatically sweep affordable housing funds over into the town's control, taking away that checks and balances, that whatever people want to do with that funding meets the CPA requirements, because that is the function of this body. So if we set a precedent, to your point, they put us in a little bit of a no-win situation. coming in this late with this. But and who even cares with these 3 projects, to be honest with you? We've done it all these years. We've done it for 6 years. I'm sure due diligence was done 6 years ago when this was put into place to make sure that we could do this. And it's only meant to serve a good purpose, to your point. So it's the objection is almost a little weird. The fact that they have a more, that what is legal is actually a more, I guess, intensive review is interesting. And so I personally am concerned that we're setting a precedent, and this is much more strategic in nature for the long term than well, I'm suggesting that I'd like to hear other people's considerations. So here we are being forced to be the bad guys to potentially put forward articles with the legal language that we found out last night, less than 2 weeks before the meeting. And we happen to know that the same entity wants to radically change the CPA funds, either in some select board opinion to get rid of it completely, and the other to allow the housing funding to kind of bypass that process. And I don't know what the right answer is, but that's my opinion. So I'll shut up and let others opine.
I'm going to jump in just for one second. I'm going to jump in for 1 second. Regarding the affordable housing funds, we are, as far as that automatic sweep that they were seeking, I think we've finally gotten the point across that that's forbidden under the Community Preservation Act, that the appropriation has to happen every single year and can only happen with the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee right out of 44B. And I believe Tallerman has actually acknowledged that to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee. So that part is I think we don't have to worry about. Just to your point of us only finding out at the last minute, the invitation to go to the pre-town meeting, I guess it went out a little over a week ago to everybody except for Community Preservation. I got the invitation at 3 p.m. The day before the meeting. And I don't know if it was intentional, but as it turned out, my time had already been, I wasn't able to make it. I had a prior commitment I couldn't get out of because of how quickly it came up. So I'll just throw that out there. Anyhow, a couple of hands went up. Grant, before you started speaking, Ellen had her hand up, and then Brett, and then I'll get to you.
Sure.
Ellen.
So I just had a couple questions about this. And so I think first off, is the issue us signing an MOU or these particular applicants because they're all town applicants?
It's what you just said. It's because it's between CPC and a town department. It's for some reason Mr. Tallerman has a problem with the agreement sort of intra-town rather than between the town and a private entity.
Can we just call it something else?
So from what I had a wonderful conversation with Lisa earlier today, who thankfully was there last night. It sounds like Attorney Tallerman's concern was that this is a contract and that perhaps it could be called something else. And when Lisa and I were talking, I had the idea, what if we said a non-contractual memorandum of understanding and inserted that phrase? Again, we don't have time to go and get a legal review from Tallerman to say, okay, is this language acceptable? And I too, as Kristen said, we're being put in a tough spot. I don't appreciate it one bit, but at the same time, I feel very protective of the Community Preservation Committee. And I don't want us to be in a position where we're looked at as having failed because these 3 projects don't make it across the finish line. Because make no mistake, it will be painted as our failure. I'm worried about that. I hope that answers a little bit of what you're.
Yeah, and I think it sort of feels to me like 2 separate issues of kind of what to do with the immediate issue of these applicants for this town meeting and kind of setting up a longer term process for this. Exactly. Because it does seem from some quick searching, this is something that other towns do seem to do. I'm in the Concord Community Preservation Committee handbook, And they have a template for how to do an MOU for a town project and for a non-town project. So I think that speaks probably to our desire that we've talked about before to have some of these things codified and have a set of how we do our applications and our procedures and all of that going forward. And this could be part of that.
Yep.
And I think in the immediate steps, feels a little more tricky, right? Because this is not something we want to tank our articles. And it is, I can understand what Kristen is saying about, you know, kind of a slippery slope of giving away some of the authority that CPC has as a check and balance, right? Not because we want power, because we want to make sure that these funds are being expended correctly. So yeah, I have a harder time thinking about what to do immediately to move forward with these, given the restrictions on changing them on town floor.
I think you've identified a couple of super important points. You know, there's the immediate solution. What do we do about these 3 warrant articles? And then we have spoken about this spring revamping or codifying our application process, and this is a big part of it. You know, another community that has a great handbook is Hingham. I came across doing, I think, the same thing as you. As well as if you start looking at the number of communities that do grant agreements, a huge number of them do. And I will say, in particular, grant agreements appear to be the standard for funds given to a community affordable housing trust fund. Those funds are nearly always given subject to a grant agreement. So I'll throw that one out there. And then lastly, folks will recall at our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, there was a discussion of things were down to the wire with legal opinions and so forth, that the committee would like to have Attorney Tellerman at one of our meetings when it's not a crunch, like for instance, this spring, when we can ask him, listen, can we do this? If not, what's the problem you have with it? How can we remedy it and so that it passes your review? I would like, hopefully, when we get to that stage during the spring, to have that meeting with him present so that this isn't sprung on us when it's so late we literally can't fix anything. Okay, Brett, you had your hand up. You were next.
And just,
Yeah,
sorry,
my
not to-
point.
sorry,
Was it?
just, yes, Brett, you can go ahead. There is a hand in the audience too, that I
Yes.
want to make sure
Yep.
we acknowledge after Brett.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I guess you guys kind of covered it, but my point was, I guess that, you know, if we pull back from the language this year, it's not necessarily setting a precedent forever, right? That basically gives us say, okay, fine, if MOUs aren't right, the language that you found related to grant agreements, it can really just be our impetus to do, as you say, to find out exactly how we phrase this going forward and make sure that it is fully approved, that we don't run into this going forward. So whether we pull it out this year, we can put in whatever the appropriate language is, and we'll have, hopefully, you know, we'll have time between now and then. So
I think we can make time. And, thank you. So the number of people want to speak. My understanding here, the order is going to be Grant, and then it's going to be Cap, and then Lisa. So Grant, you had something you wanted to say earlier, and I cut you off. My apologies.
No, that's fine. Everybody wants to get in. I did just want to push back a bit on the timing of this about when we found out. I'm looking at Jay Tellerman's comments on our draft warrant article from February 7th, in which he flagged this.
Yeah.
So that still could not be enough time for us to figure it out and to overcome that. But I did just want to say that he did leave multiple comments in his edits on that draft, in which he said, let's see, this language should be stricken because the town clerk cannot execute an MOU with the town, which employs him. These MOUs are for grants to third parties. And then he repeated that comment on the other relevant warrant articles. So I was aware of this issue. I think I just kind of assumed that we decided to ignore him. But you know, I knew that he had left those comments over a month ago, so I don't feel that it's coming out of nowhere personally.
Yeah, no, he certainly had left, he had made those comments, and the problem was we were left, you know, with two of our members on vacation for February vacation. We were left without a quorum to respond to them, and by the time we came back, there was a hard deadline that we had to get our articles to the Board of Selectmen at a certain date that didn't leave us time to take the language we would have put into a memorandum of understanding and get it into the warrant article. We met on that Saturday because they were due on the Monday. And we simply
Sure.
didn't have the time. And our reasoning was, you know, Jay doesn't like the language. He was okay with it for a number of years, and we had MOUs with other town organizations. So we're gonna have to go forward this year, and then we will meet with him. We had this conversation with the Board of Selectmen, and then we'll meet with him. Perhaps we should have read more into his comments, his original comments, but it sounds like he's taken a much firmer line as of last night, and saying that our proposed solution, you know, to maintain the status quo this year and then fix it correctly next year in consultation with him. I'm surprised he's taken such a firm line. So your point's taken.
And then
two sides to it.
And then just a couple other things. So in terms of what to do this year, I agree with everyone else that I'm in favor of pulling the language. I don't know if we have to do that at town meeting since the warrant's already been approved, or you know how that happens. But either way,
I think there's an easy path to do that we can get.
Okay. And then going forward, I'm not sure if all these solutions will work, but I do agree that some sort of letter of intent or could be, a non-binding way. Another thing that I was thinking about is that, other boards or committees in which applicants come before them, like the planning board or I'm not sure if ZBA, but definitely the planning board, if you have an application before you have them revise your application until it kind of meets what the committee wants it to be, and then they vote on the revised application. And that's not something that we did. So that's just another idea about, we could ask the applicant to insert the language that we want in their revised application or something like that, and then go about, approving the revised application. And then the other option, potential solution going forward, obviously not this town meeting, is either conditioning our vote on these conditions, or including all of this in the warrant article itself, which of course makes for a messy warrant article, but at least it would be there. So those are kind of my suggestions for how we could approach this going forward.
And I think having a meeting with Jay Tallerman present would help, because the second suggestion that you made is something I've thought about too, that we include language in the warrant article that the application materials are incorporated in the article by reference. And what if we ask within the application materials for the applicant to say, we will be submitting a request monthly, we'll be submitting them to the committee's consultants, get all that stuff in there, and then incorporate it by reference. But will that pass legal muster? These are questions. We need town council to be sitting in a room with us so we can go through this stuff, I would suggest.
And then just last thing, I think just before opening it to the public, I think since Lisa has her hand up, we should probably just keep it conversation with the board and then open it up. It would be my preference, but that's just me.
Okay. I do see Kat has had her hand up for a very long time, and I just want to check in with her quickly.
Ben, if I may, I was going to say the same thing that Grant said. I think before we open it up to the public and applicants, the full board should have an opportunity to speak. That's all.
Okay.
I mean, obviously you're the chair. You can do it any way that you see fit, but I think it's in any meeting I've ever been in, the board has an opportunity to speak before the public.
Yeah. So I just want to, so I'm just going to say to Kat, my apologies for keeping you waiting. There have been some changes that I don't know if you're aware of regarding the allowability of memorandums of understanding. We're trying to get our minds wrapped around that, but we very much look forward to speaking with you shortly after we get through this. And I think we're getting closer to an endpoint anyhow. So sorry to keep you waiting. So I guess what we're looking for here is, what our strategy is going to be for this town meeting. Lisa, I see your hand is back up.
Yeah, sorry, Ben, I took it down because I thought you were gonna come to me next. That's why I took it down.
Okay.
So, can I say a few
Yeah,
things
please,
myself?
please. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just so the committee's aware as well, obviously I was at the meeting last night, and one of the things I had said to town council was that for 5 years, the MOUs language has always been in there and there's never been an issue until now. And, he says that he had a concern last year, but again, it was let go and it wasn't pushed as it's being pushed this year. One of the things I did tell them is we talked, put a little bit about options, and it was an option that we were hoping wouldn't happen, is CPC could pull the article,
Right.
which again, that's something I don't know that anybody wants to do, but, if CPC doesn't support the language in any way, only CPC can bring the article forth. I had mentioned that we could also incorporate the MOU language into the article, which again, I think that's cumbersome and tiresome for town meeting. The last thing they want to do is be reading, something that could be easy. I did also share that the MOUs are just a check and balance. It's just an agreement between the groups that they're going to follow specific rules and things are going to get done a certain way. It was suggested by Andrew Dennington that maybe that CPC creates a guideline. And a guideline is something that both could sign. And, but again, town council reiterated, he's fine with something like that, except it has to say it's not a contract at the end of it. So, I don't know what the answer is. I think, town meeting was really rushed this year, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to, having an issue like this come up so close to town meeting. So one of my suggestions to the board in a longer term is going to be, we set a deadline, and I know we try to accommodate everybody with allowing changes, but I think we need to set that deadline, and we need to make sure that we're prepared for town meeting, so we don't look like we don't know what we're doing.
With that last part, that's something for this spring, Lisa, and I couldn't agree with you more. I would, I'm gonna, when it gets to that point, I'm gonna be suggesting that we accept applications between August 1st and October 1st, and we just leave ourselves a provision that with a vote of the committee for an emergency situation, a later application could be allowed. So we do have some flexibility, but we set actual hard and fast deadlines because this is crazy.
Yeah. And just a couple more quick points. And, and I had mentioned as well at the meeting that, Kat was sitting there, and I said, there's been MOUs in the past and there's never been an issue. It's just checks and balance and makes the process easier for everyone. And Kat did say that there hasn't, she agreed there hasn't been an issue with this, but, I think that, council came into the meeting knowing that this was the stance it was going to take. As soon as the article got brought up, the moderator turned to Attorney Tallerman to allow him to speak. So, conspiracy theories or not, Kristen, it was interesting, and had CPC not been there, a lot more would have been said, which is unfortunate. So again, how we move forward, is the question, and I don't think anybody wants to hold up projects as we do that. So I'm also interested to kind of get a general consensus of everybody of how we do that without giving up authority and power that this committee was charged with doing when the CPA Act was done. We are the checks and balances, and we've seen, take CPC out of this, we've seen on other town projects over the years, when the checks and balances weren't there and there wasn't a second set of eyes looking, something always went wrong.
Yep.
So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks for going last night, Lisa.
Yeah, to your last point, it was because of things going wrong that the MOUs were adopted, and they have helped keep projects on the rails since adopting them, which adds to the frustration here. I think we're at the point for folks to start, talk about what their preferred option is. And I'll start off with that. I see a hand. No.
Sorry, I just have a quick question.
Please.
And first of all, just a question before we have that debate, because it'll help me. But before we do that, I guess, well, actually, let me just ask it. if it's too long of an answer, just tell me, hold off. But what's the difference in saying affordable housing can't just be handled? If what they're saying now is MOUs aren't required, is the difference here we're saying, well, but for affordable housing, they still have to do the application, so we don't need to worry if we take out the MOU language? Like, what's that extra insurance that you feel okay? I know that they're not going to go after, I know that no one's going to try to touch the affordable housing this particular town meeting if everything goes according to the 2 meetings we had in person, or we had one in person and I was in attendance at another where they said coming off the table. What's our assurance that that's not going to come back up again and we're not giving them precedence by saying, no, we can't have the MO anymore? Like,
so
that we feel okay.
there's actually a really good answer to that, Kristen. It starts with chapter 44B that says that that's the law, and then it says I think it's section 9, it's called regulation. The DOR then creates regulations relating to this. That's what this IGR document is. This is regulatory guidance from DOR, and they recommend that these grant agreements that are much more bulletproof than a memorandum of understanding be used in particular for expenditures or appropriations for transferring funds to affordable housing trust fund committees. And that's the protection that you're talking about. And this is about as ironclad as the protection will get. And it's interesting, when you search up Massachusetts Community Preservation Act grant agreement, what comes up for the most part is a bunch of model ones with a bunch of blanks not filled in. The ones that are filled in are all with affordable housing trust funds.
Cool.
People who share, committees who share your concerns because of the sort of free reign that affordable housing trust funds are given. When CPA funds are involved, it's under one of these grant agreements.
Thank you so much.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so my feeling is, as I said before, remove the MOU language, which brings us back to where we were 6 years ago, and replace that by simply sending a letter to each of the applicants. I agree with what Grant said, that this would create a precedent only to the extent that we let it. Those who expect that this is going to be how things operate in the future, I think would be up for somewhat of a surprise. We were put into a difficult situation that we now are going to be taking steps to avoid, especially starting this spring when we rewrite our regulations. I think it's my opinion that in the interest of getting these articles passed through town meeting without running into major roadblocks, I think that's the best way forward. But I suspect there's a diversity of opinion here on the committee. So who's next? Lisa.
So I agree with taking that language out. That's fine. But if we're going to be sending a letter out, why don't we just add in that it's, a non-binding, whatever you want to call the letter, why not put that language in there? So the public knows that there is still some form, there's no teeth to it currently, but at least we've done our due diligence and we've put a letter out there, whether you want to call it agreement of understanding, maybe, I don't know. Ben, you could think of something much better than me, I'm sure. But I think we should put that language in there that we're replacing it with something that, can't be done currently. And, replacing it with this letter, and no one's signing it, but.
I was thinking we could actually just ask the applicant to sign acknowledging receipt of the letter, or something. Yeah. I don't want to get into a contest of wills. There's some question as to where the push to eliminate MOUs is coming from, and I don't want to provoke a fight with anybody. But no, Lisa, I agree with you.
Well, when you say you don't want to provoke a fight, no one wants a fight. That's not the right thing, but wait, I guess, could I just understand that a little bit more? Are you saying that what Lisa's suggesting could prompt some additional
Oh.
negative.
My own suggestion that, you know, we've had somebody who's basically refused to, one of the applicants has indicated, town clerk, that he will absolutely not be signing
Right.
any kind of memorandum of
Right.
understanding
Right.
because of town council's comments. And I had suggested, you know, we could look for a signature just to acknowledge receipt of the document. I don't want it to come across as trying to provoke a fight. I guess I was
Yeah.
questioning my own suggestions.
No, I hear what you're saying. And I was thinking about this as Lisa was talking about her suggestion, that what I like about it is that 6 years ago, we made a change, or the committee, the town made a change, right? Or however, and there was a reason why we did that. The committee at the time did that. And it's worked for 6 years.
Yep.
And it's just insurance and it's checks and balances. There's nothing wrong with it. So I like the idea of saying, hey, we've come across, we say all the time, we're always learning.
Yep.
We've learned something new this year. We still believe in the intent of this, and therefore we would still like to show some sort of paperwork and intent that both parties are mutually saying, yes, we agree on this without the signature. It's not legally binding, what Lisa said, but what that shows, as we're trying to educate people about CPC, is consistency. We're not saying, oh, if it goes away for 2 years, then people forget why we had it to begin with. And I think it makes introducing it now that much harder. Instead, we're saying, no, we've had this process for 6 years, a little different this year, but it's going to be there and it's coming back. And that's just to be consistent with the public. We're trying to educate them about this process. So if we remove this kind of significant piece of it, that's that checks and balance and the reason why we exist, we're not doing ourselves any favors either. And I think Jim would see that. Like, we're not asking him to legally sign anything. I don't want to speak for him, of course, Mr. Hagerty, but it's just consistency and process. And that's important, especially with a town who only plugs into the process every now and then.
Excellent
And
point.
could we call it like a letter of expectation?
That's a
I
great
mean,
idea.
that's
Yeah.
really what it is. It's what we expect to happen through this process.
Yeah, it's great. That's all the MOU was to start with. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. And hopefully it will serve the same purpose. And again, I think the fact that we're dealing with town entities does count for something. I think, or at least a little more closely linked than with a private grant recipient or something.
I just hate to take language out and leave it hanging, and somebody's going to say, well, why did you do that? And
Right.
where are the checks and balances now? So in its place, we're putting something else that still guarantees we can do our job and that there is an understanding and an expectation. That's all.
No, I like that. And again, we still have we are still going to be reviewing payments. We're still going to be directing the expenditure of the appropriation. So we do have some enforcement authority. I see a hand up from Freddie. What's up, Freddie? Oh,
Okay, sorry, I muted and unmuted by mistake. So what you could do as an explanation, and whether this goes in the frequently asked questions or when you first, if you're going to pull, and how you did it last year would be the way I think you would do it, is just put it on
Exactly.
the floor without the language, say, we're pulling this language, and you can discuss it then or not. But I think from what, if the committee decides to go this way, say we have this letter of expectation for this year while we are working on a more formal, legally accepted process for next year. And you don't necessarily, you can or not go into detail, but I would recommend that the grant agreement straight across the board, when you read the language, when people have a chance to look at it, it allows you to, for a smaller project, not be as intense,
Yeah.
but it's still, now you have grant agreements, no MOUs, but you can go way further in those grant agreements than you ever anticipated with an MOU. And for some of these projects, in hindsight, knowing what we have, when I was on the committee, what we dealt with in the past, a grant agreement is actually the right way to go for some of the projects you've had in the past, and would be an improvement over the MOU. And you don't have to make it as cumbersome for smaller little projects. You can still be fair across the board but make them customized to the project. So that would be a way to deal with it at town meeting, is to, we have this, something in place for this year while we transition, and next year we're coming back, you know, better, and you're coming back better, and
Yeah,
Over.
if it comes up during town meeting. Grant had asked the question, how would this work, you know, from a practical standpoint, if we pull the language, and Freddie has you know, put her finger right on it. Basically, I would let Paul Semino, first, we have to take a vote here this evening to do that. Secondly, I would let Paul Semino know that I would not be moving the articles as written. I would hold each of the three. I would not be moving them as written. I would be reading them into the record with that language absent. With that language absent, they would still be within the four corners of the original articles, and they would have the approval of, they would be the official recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee. And that's an appropriate way of doing this, I guess.
Can I add
Yeah.
one other thing, Ben? I think it would be good to have these letters of expectations on hand in case someone in the audience says, well, what is in this letter of expectation and what was in an MOU? I mean, look at
Yeah.
golf. 3 common sense things. And I
Yeah.
think if anyone in the hall is going to question it after hearing the 3 things we're looking to do, I think that's going to put an end to any further discussion on having this letter of expectation in there.
That's a great idea, Lisa. And strategy wise, it would be my inclination to wait and see if somebody brings this up from the audience, then by all means address it. Dragging this out to town meeting, where, you know, this is all very fascinating to all of us. We think about it a lot, and to many people at town meeting, I don't know that it carries the same fascination, and I don't want it to sound like it's a bunch of petty bickering between a couple of committees. But if somebody brings it up, I really like your suggestion that we bring like a letter of expectation, just to read exactly, you know, exactly what it is, and just to make the point that it's just an attempt to be helpful to everybody involved. I like that idea. Okay, Freddie?
so process wise,
Yes.
we can take what you just, if you're going down this route, I'm not saying you are, but if you are, take what we discussed tonight, have them be in this letter of expectation, and then we have a meeting before town meeting where you can vote on it, because you can't vote on it tonight. Then those letters will be, dare I say, hot off the press, and will be available that night. But you would want to, you know, let the applicants know that these letters are going to be voted on, and invite them to the pre-town meeting if they want to be there. I would recommend you take much of the same format in the, and I'm sorry I didn't send out the MOU, which it just sort of said it was the warrant article, and, you know, it was passed at town meeting on such and such a date. You know, gives you that sort of standardized. I would just, you can use the same, just take MOU off the top and say a letter of expectation, and, you know, talks about some of the things, just more formal.
Yeah.
Are we talking about removing the language and replacing it with letter of expectation? Is that what we're saying?
No.
No, okay, good, all right.
Removing the language itself. I just pulled up a copy of the warrant. Project can be completed in conformance with details as presented to members of the Community Preservation Committee, and to be documented in the application and signed memorandum of understanding. We would simply alter that sentence and remove I think the words "and signed memorandum of understanding," and the rest of the article stands. I think that's my proposal, but we haven't heard from everybody here on the committee. Freddie, I see, yeah, you have, oh, your hand is down. So I'm looking for other folks in the committee. How do you generally feel about this approach? Do you want to do a different approach? Propose changes to this approach? What,
I'm in favor of the approach.
okay, thank you.
I think it makes the most sense to do right now, and you know, we'll obviously continue discussions after this for the future, but for right now, just removing that phrase makes the most sense to me.
Okay, thank you. Ellen, how does this look to you?
I agree with that as well, and I like having the letters on hand as backup if it comes up, and you know, keeping the dirty laundry out of town meeting if at all possible. But I think this makes sense.
Great, thank you. And Kristen?
Guys, I'm sorry, I had to step away for 20 seconds.
Oh, sure.
But I think I heard everything. I support this just to get these through. I mean, because at the end of the day, we voted these through because we saw urgency in certain ones, and there's ARPA funding, you know, with the trails. Like there's just reasons we can't not go forward. And I understand, Ben, your point completely that like we can't look like we're being nitpicky or trying to start a fight, but we need to balance that and just at least get something in there, something stated at some point, just to say, typically we have this year we're doing this.
Right.
With the intention to formalize this going forward. I think that's very important to be said and said publicly.
Yeah. I agree.
You will need to vote each article.
Yep.
Tonight.
Let's see. So we still have some work to, it sounds like we're sort of on board there. We have 2 more projects to get through. While we're doing that, if somebody else could also pull up the draft warrant, it's not draft anymore, the warrant, and see if you agree with me with by simply deleting the 4 words "and signed memorandum of understanding." Does that work as a warrant article?
It does. I have it in
Okay.
front of me, Ben. It does.
Oh, thank you.
That sentence ends up being, project to be completed in conformance with details as presented to the members of the Community Preservation Committee and to be documented in the application, period.
Yes, and that is, it works out the same for each of Article 29, Article 30, and Article 31 have the exact same language that can simply be deleted. So we can conduct those 3 votes. I'm going to suggest we do that after we hear from Kat, who's been waiting so patiently for us to get through this. And then after that, we can conduct those 3 votes to get that taken care of. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, Kat, sorry to keep you waiting for so long. This unexpected roadblock came up that we had to figure out a way around. Thank you so much for coming this evening. We just wanted to go through very quickly what would have been in the memorandum of understanding, but will now, I believe, be in a letter of expectation. And secondly, I just wanted to say thank you for your words last night that Lisa told us about with regards to the memorandum of understanding. It's much appreciated. Kristen, could you promote Kat up?
Yep. All set, Kat. You should have an invitation. There we go.
There we go.
And Kat, Zoom has you. Oh, there we go.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So no problem on waiting. I'm fine with that. I appreciate your time. The reason I raised my hand earlier is because I had a comment to your discussion because I was at last night's meeting. And I just wanted to clarify a couple points.
Sure.
What I heard Jay say, and I'm not speaking to any of the, you guys have history, I get it. You know a lot more than I do. I got nothing going on with that. But all I mean is when I heard Jay say that the memorandum of understanding can't be legally binding because the volunteers like Trails and Golf, we can't sign a contract at all. We have no signatory authority. So that was one of the reasons. And he also said, like what Lisa said, that if you just put not a contract, not legally binding on it, that it would be fine. I thought that it was kind of a straightforward fix. So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but I came out of that positive thinking like, oh, because I think the MOUs are amazing because it's a great belt and suspenders situation. So anyway.
Thank you. So I mean, the first couple of items in the, the letter of expectations now are going to be just the procedural stuff. Submittals for payment every 30 days. And the submittals will be made to Freddie with me CC'd on them. And then we ask for an update every 6 months as long as the project is ongoing, just to let us know, what's happened in the last 6 months. What do you look forward to have happen in the next 6 months? How are things going generally? Is the budget holding up? That kind of thing, just to keep us up to date on what's going on. And then I'm gonna lean on Freddie here again, who hopefully, I know we didn't put together the formal MOUs because of everything that's happened, but Freddie, your recollection of our discussions through the application process.
So we have a sunset clause and the contingency funding. I think some understanding of, Kat, you have two CPA projects for this, funding sources for this project, and we need to be clear which is which. And I think we can work on that a little bit between now and when you have the meeting on pre-town meeting to go through that. But I think that is where, for those that don't know, you get an invoice, and if it's the same company, but you put it in two different, their work in two different applications, that has to be clearly set up, because it could be confusing, and you do need to do it correctly. So we want to go through both applications and see where that is, as well as some sort of understanding of which part of the project is, and I know it's in the application, but I would hate to be paying just pretend some of the ARPA funding or the came through and we paid that by mistake. It can be straightened out later, but we just really need to have, in your case, you have 4 sources of funding for this one project, right? And I'm assuming, knowing how projects run, that just because you got one grant first and then the next grant next, that's not necessarily how the invoices are going to come in. So I think that is, and that's more of a fiscal type situation. It's, we're not going to ever spend more funds than you are in the accounts, but just to track it correctly is important. And aside from that, I'm not sure that there was that much. I'll go through the minutes to make sure there's nothing else there that the committee, when we were talking about having this meeting, I suggested people go through their notes and look at minutes to see if there was anything they recalled. Of course, the sunset, I think I already said, and the contingency, and just being in touch with the committee if anything happens that unexpected.
Freddie, if I may, could you explain what you mean by, well, I also have another thing I want to talk to Kat about, but could you explain what you mean by 4 funding sources? Like, what are the 4? Maybe I didn't follow them.
The first CPA, this first CPA funding was for a specific portion of the project, but we carefully crafted the warrant article to allow the committee to apply for this MassGov recreation grant.
Okay.
So that it could be used as matching monies to the grant. So they have the grant and they have CPA monies that can be used for matching funds for that first portion of the project. The project got expanded. They went for ARPA funding.
Yep.
And then they came back now for this CPA funding. So that's
Okay.
4 different sources.
Thanks. I guess I didn't catch the match there on the second one. So thanks for that. And then just in reviewing my notes and just recalling previous meetings, Kat, I think I had talked to you about getting relevant permits from Concom and I think it'd be Concom, but I know that in your application you said like other towns, Framingham and stuff like that. But I was just wondering if we should, if we think that's something that we should include in this or not MOU, sorry, letter of expectation.
That's a standard in the MOU. Sorry, I didn't state that, but it's also standard in the application that's documented. So no, historically, CPC will never fund a project that doesn't have all of the permits in place ahead of time. So that would be a checklist. I guess I think it's a good thing to mention it, that we need to follow up and make sure before the work starts that somehow that's documented.
Great, thank you.
Point.
And that's it for me.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything for Kat? Okay, now, Kat, have you, I forgot to ask Tony about this on the golf course. Have you put a presentation together?
No. So that's why one of my questions I was going to ask, and based on the experience last time, I did not plan to have a presentation. We will have a 2-pager like information sheet that we'll have for a handout. And we may do some just brief advertising on, you know, if Vanessa could share with an email alert or things like that, share and care, just some information. That's what we're going to plan to do. And that's primarily based off of the first round. It wasn't really recommended that we do a presentation as much because it could raise more questions than maybe we need to. And we just focus on what questions are asked by the town hall. So I'm open to your suggestion on that.
I agree. I agree with your strategy. You have the support of both select board and advisory. And being prepared to answer specific questions as they come up is great. And in the past, you know, with the previous article, that strategy worked really well. Any other thoughts or feelings on that from the committee?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just my sense is I think it's a project that has support already. I had it in the first round. I had it from select board for ARPA funding, and I have to imagine it still has it now. So I think I agree with that strategy.
I have a question for Grant, actually. Grant, because in the past previous calls, and let me know if I'm remembering wrong, I think you had some concern just about the amount. And I can't remember if you were honestly speaking, that seemed like a lot. Correct me if I'm remembering wrong.
I don't believe so. Not on this article.
Well, which are, oh, the golf course. I'm sorry.
Golf course.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. Where I was leading up to though, with that though, Grant, where I was going, not to put you on the spot, was like, what questions do we have any advice on like the questions we need? Like what questions can we anticipate are the ones that Kat's going to get so she can be ready for them?
How many people are going to use this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we heard that from, I think, Mr. Hamilton really helped out at the meeting with the Board of Selectmen. These are the questions that are going to come up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I probably also expect.
Why does it cost so much?
I was
Yeah,
going to say, I also expect like, why did we have to come back for a second round? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I would have to expect is just kind of baked into your expectations already.
A lot of people won't remember that there was a first round. So
yeah.
if you don't bring it up, you may not have to answer the question. Not that you're hiding it, but it's not, this is a standalone project. Sorry to jump in there. But.
Well, the project also expanded into a bigger project. We started, and we knew that was going to happen. We had plans for that. So phase 1, phase 2. But yeah, that's good to know.
Ben, can I just say one thing before? I'm not sure where we're at in the process in this, but I just wanted to make sure that I wanted to thank you, Kat. This was my first round being on CPC, going through applications. I went through some pretty tough questions. I did specifically funding questions at you. And I just wanted to say that you gave the most comprehensive answers back that I had nothing further to say. And that doesn't happen often. So I just wanted to say thank you for the due diligence that you put into making sure we had all the information that we needed. That's all.
Definitely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we appreciate all your time. I know you guys put a lot of time into all of these applications. You do great work. So we appreciate all the support that we've had from CPC over the years.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Let me know
Yes.
if I can ask those. So we're happy to provide the updates as needed for CPC, the 6-month updates. Is that something that we should initiate, or or will we be reached out by the committee when you want those, or should we just stay on top of it? We're happy to do either.
We should both be staying on top of that, and frankly, if something comes up, obviously before 6 months, we would always love to meet with you if there's any kind of question or just something you wanted to brag about, for that matter. But yeah, from both sides, we have to be a little bit better about tracking projects and asking people to come in. And we do very much appreciate when applicants, like for instance, St. Mark's, in working on the bell tower, we're quite good about that. So from both sides.
Got it. The second question I have is, has the application been shared outside? Like, is there any public sharing of that application? Has anyone had an opportunity to see it from the town?
Freddie, are they posted on our website?
No, we didn't get the machine yet, so all of our documents should be posted on the website, but aren't, and it's a big project to move forward, and I'm trying to get Betsy to be able to post everything with the minutes as they're supposed to be, but it was a heavy lift at a time when we were, well, this was not your typical application season round.
No, it was not. Although, this is sort of new in the past couple of years. I mean, all of our discussions, of course, have been recorded for posterity and are on YouTube. So those interested certainly are able to look at it that way.
If Kat wants her application, I can try to get that one out there, and all 3 of them should be posted before town meeting. I can work on that with Betsy next week.
Yeah, I was going
So
to.
just,
Yeah, go ahead.
it is on it is on our website. I remember checking previously and I just checked again. So
We started working on it, but.
yeah, the list there is not accurate in terms of the current projects, but yours is there. So we should probably delete the ones that are not going forward. But the PDF of your application is on our website currently.
Great. And do you know where it is? Because I was looking for it, but I couldn't.
Yeah, it's on our Community Preservation Committee page, and then CPA applications town meeting 2024 on the bottom left. And again, I don't know who manages this, but 2 of those are not current projects.
Are they still applications? Because then they would be, were they applications you received?
One of them was, the 21 Boston Road, and the other one is the fire truck historic preservation. There's no application linked to it, just the word there, the words fire truck historic preservation.
Okay, so
But
I'll take a look on that.
the
one.
trails one is linked currently. It's just as an FYI.
We did start working on it, but.
That is actually the outdated application. It was the original one. So we had a couple of updates. So is it possible to get that updated to the most recent one? And I can resend the most recent one, so it's in the hands of the right people.
If you can do that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Should I send it to you and Betsy?
And Ben and Kristen, which is the standard chair, vice chair, and the admin consultant.
Got it. And that's great. And then there's no issues if we put it on our website and link to it as well, right? I just have to learn how to use the new website now. I used to know how to do it. But okay. Great, I'll get that out to you. And then let me just see if there's. Okay, I think that's it. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, any further questions for Kat? Kat, any further questions for us?
I don't think so. I didn't realize last night's discussion or what happened with the MOUs might jeopardize the project. I got a little sweaty when you said that. So I hope that goes smoothly.
I was feeling a little bit panicky, this morning, but in speaking with Lisa and Freddie and now with the committee, I feel much better about things. And I think I think this is going to look absolutely fine to town meeting. We're just making a minor adjustment to the language at the request of town council. And if anyone has any questions, we can explain what's going on, but I almost suspect there won't be questions. So I feel like we're in a good place, and I think there's a strong, well-supported application, and I'm very hopeful.
Well, thanks again for all your support, and let me know if you have any other questions, and thanks for your help tonight.
Great. Thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay, so town clerk is not joining us this evening, but we should just have a brief discussion about what would go into a letter of expectation beyond the standard that I've mentioned for each of the other two. I know it came up during the application process that DOR, their guidance is now from the 2019 guidance. Their guidance is very clear that digitization of any amount is simply not allowed. So there's, I think that may be a mention that we put in the letter of expectation. Freddie, oh, I see you have your hand up already.
Yeah, we did go this far on this one from the minutes.
Yes.
Let me just take me 1 second to grab it. Betsy had put together everything in the minutes.
Okay.
That it's the dollar amount approved for document preservation does not include digitalization, triage work, or archiving of documents, the start date, and pay the archivist for 2 years, items to be preserved to be listed. Have we received that's one thing outstanding, the vote on the specific documents from the Historical Commission?
That's right. Grant, I believe you said the vote was taken.
The vote was taken multiple times.
So we need to see the
Tried this-
minutes with the
Okay.
documents listed.
The minutes exist.
Yeah, Jim put together the.
Well, I write the minutes for historical.
Okay.
I didn't actually list out every document in the minutes.
But you
That had to have
probably
been in
referred
here.
to Jim's doc. Jim had the document that listed all.
Jim
of
had the
them.
documents.
And if you voted on that document, then the two
Right.
things together give us what we need.
So sorry, what do you need from me? I guess I'm a bit confused. I relayed to the committee previously that the historical voted on the specific list. There was concern about that we voted on the documents generally and it wasn't the list, and then I took it back to historical and we voted on the list exactly as presented
Then
to
I think,
CPC.
we typically put a copy of the minutes of that vote in our project file. Just this
Okay.
actually a requirement of the Community Preservation Act. So just to dot that particular I. Freddie, I see you've got your hand up.
That was from before, sorry.
Okay.
So when do you need that by?
The minutes are online, right? Oh.
It should be, to be honest, I don't even remember what meeting
they
that
just-
was. We haven't yet approved our minutes from
Okay.
late January. We have a meeting next week to approve those, but
So how
Yeah.
we've dealt with this in the past was pre-town meeting, and if for some reason it's not correct by town meeting, that is a condition of funding, that vote be provided. So one time the committee made me, when I was chair, actually say that at town meeting, as we put it on the floor, but that it was
Okay.
conditional on
Scott-
doing that.
From a
I mean, to be
statutory
honest, just
perspective.
from memory, I don't remember what meeting it was, but it could already be approved in the minutes, but I literally don't remember what month that was.
So that's to the,
Yeah.
what's that, a little bit, like 10 days away? If you already voted it, just to get it to the committee, and if there's any problem with it, the project can still go forth, it just needs,
Yeah.
no funding until it gets corrected or,
I'll go check offline what minutes were approved and get back to you.
Great.
so that's also said, archivist will work 19, and I don't know if you want to put all that in. 19 and a half hours per week with only 6 hours per week for CPC work, bills to be submitted monthly. update on project every 6 months, and then some of the other standard. There's no permitting or any of that kind of requirement, but
Freddie, I'd like to see the archivist and the amount of hours a week, because again, you never know what you never know. And, you know, a bill could come in for more hours than that. And at least if we've documented it in the memorandum, letter of expectation, then, you know, we're clear on, you know, what we had agreed upon.
I'm
So
not
I would-
clear what
I
you're
would
saying.
ask that it,
We
I'm
don't-
sorry?
So an invoice comes in with the hours? I don't know what do you mean you want to see?
Well, you just brought up whether to put the
Oh, I'm sorry.
archivist at 19 and a half hours a week, whether to put that in there. And I'm recommending that you do in the letter of expectation. You just asked that question unless I completely
Okay, sorry.
misunderstood what you said.
No, I was saying, do you want the 19 and a half with only 6 hours, or do you not care about the 19 and a half and you're only paying for 6 hours? We don't care about the other hours, do you?
Because they're non-CPA fundable.
That was my question. point.
Yeah, we only care about the CPA fundable.
I don't mean what you care, but it's not your,
It's not germane to what we're doing. It's
right, if he works 20 hours or 50 hours, it's really not part of the project.
yeah, and frankly, it could just lead to confusion for us trying to untangle.
So you will only get a 6 hour and what they worked and what specifically was worked on. For that
Did
6
we-
hours for the
Did we
invoice.
put in the application process, did we put a cap of 6 hours, only 6 hours per week? Or is that just how the math works out over the?
That's what Jim put in his application.
Oh, okay. If it's in the application, then that's it.
I mean, maybe we should double check. That's why it would have been nice to have the applicant here for the conversation. But you
Yeah.
might want to check, like, what if you work 12 hours one week and no hours?
On the next. That's what I was thinking too. And we don't want to hamstring them in any way.
But if they're not here, and also if that was what was in the application, I think that's what you have to go by.
Along with a willingness to adjust the letter if you know, we hear back from Jim, you know, this is, you know, as you say, the hours may be irregular, but will certainly be within the budget or something like that. But I mean, let's stick with the application. Okay, yeah, I see some nodding heads. I think the committee's, Grant, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, just following up on the last point. I just looked at our agenda. So it looks like the revote that we took on the town clerks took place in late January. And as I said, we didn't meet in February, so that meeting won't be until the 19th. And it will be approved at the 19th, but does that work on our end in terms of timing?
It does. Grant, can you send me
Okay.
the draft minutes?
They do not exist yet.
Oh,
I am a little bit behind, so this weekend I can.
It was recorded on Zoom. You could go watch the vote live.
you are kidding, right?
It's
I have the
there.
video. I'm referring to it to take minutes, so I can send it to you if you want.
I think that's out of the scope of my
Yes.
job. duties.
Okay,
I mean, if we really want to get into details, I'll probably be writing them this weekend for approval on the 19th. So we should have it within definitely a week.
that works great, Grant. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Freddie, anything else that you think we ought to include in the letter of expectations?
Standard language, I mean, it's in the warrant article too, but we repeat it about the contingency
Yeah.
funding, you know, so a lot of this is just really standard. The warrant article, and then anything special, and some projects have more special things in it than others, and
Right.
this is kind of not one of those. So,
Okay. Okay, anyone have anything else on this project? So I'm going to suggest that now, see, we have somebody in the audience who hasn't spoken this evening. I just want to extend the offer one more time. If you wish to offer questions or comments on any of our topics of discussion this evening, please use the raise hand function, and we would love to hear from you. We're not trying to ignore you. Okay. I think next up, we ought to conduct the votes on the 3 articles that we're going to be amending, let me just pull back up my, where did I put that? Here we are. So I'm looking at the,
Ben, I'm sorry to
yes,
interrupt.
go ahead.
You are not amending the articles.
Excuse me, we are,
Going to put them on the floor with new language. So you are,
we're going to approve an alteration of the language to be read on the floor of town meeting.
and I'll just, can I just jump in to
Yep.
tell people? When you amend an article, it's a whole nother process that has to take a vote to approve, to amend. And where Ben is putting the article on the floor, he can do it that way, which is a cleaner way and the only way actually
Yeah,
for the CPC to move forward with your vote. So you just don't want to use the term amend because it could, that's why I jumped in. So thank you.
okay, yeah, from our internal perspective, we're sort of amending the language, but from the perspective of town meeting, it takes on a whole different language, a whole different meaning. I get your point. So I'm going to just go article by article. I'll try to get what would be looking for in a motion, and then if somebody wants to move it, that would be great. Looking for a vote to change Article 29, which is the Town Clerk's Records Restoration Project, to remove from the second to last sentence the words "and signed memorandum of understanding."
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
And I will call the roll. Kristen Laval,
LaVault, yes.
Lisa Braccio,
Brashear, yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
and Grant Farrington.
Yes.
Ben Smith is a yes. Okay, next up. Article 30. Is there a motion to remove the words "and signed memorandum of understanding" from the second to last sentence of Article 30?
So
So
moved.
Okay, we
Second.
have, a motion in a second. Did somebody second that?
Second,
Okay, and I will call the roll. Kristen Laval,
LaVault, yes.
Lisa Braccio,
Yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
Grant Farrington,
Yes.
Ben Smith is yes. Article 31, we're now on to the
Ben-
golf course.
Ben,
Yep, go
Can I
ahead.
just ask, just in case there's a failure on the video for any reason, who moved that?
Several people. Who wants to,
Brett.
Brett, okay.
And who seconded it?
Was that Ellen? Did you second that?
Thought that was Chris.
Oh,
Kristen.
Excuse me. Great.
Thank you. I'm just taking notes on the,
Oh,
Betsy will watch the video and do the minutes, but
just
this
in
is too
case.
important to not have it written down. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. So moving on to Article 31, is there a motion to remove the words "and signed memorandum of understanding" from the end of the second sentence? Second to last sentence, excuse me.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Grant Farrington, a second from Lisa, was that?
Grant,
It was Brett.
Oh, excuse
yeah,
me.
Brett moved it.
Brett moved and I seconded, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Thank you. I will call the roll. Kristen Laval,
LaVault, yes.
Lisa Braccio,
Yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
Grant Farrington,
Yes.
and Ben Smith is yes. All right, that takes care of all of those. Next up, pre-ATM meeting time. What time does it start? I don't even know.
10 o'clock.
At 10 a.m.
I
So,
have the room reserved and you can start to meet anytime after 8:30 a.m.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we try to meet at 9:45 is what we've done in the past, right, Freddie? We generally have met 15 minutes before town meeting.
in this case, do you have some extra stuff you need to do? Is there anything that would potentially come up with the? I'm just asking, is there anything?
Yeah, I think we should have more than 15 minutes.
Okay, I mean,
It's for curveballs, right? Like,
And you're
Half
gonna, you're
hour?
gonna have to approve the letter of expectation.
oh, we are, yeah. Okay,
And
Uh-huh.
who's gotta be in, I'm sorry, who's gotta be in other rooms?
I do. I have a 9 o'clock planning board.
So I got the room to be as close to the planning board as possible. I reserved it early.
so do we want to say a half an hour? Try to meet at 9:30?
Sounds fair?
That works.
Okay.
a
Great.
like a quick question just on rules. If so, agendas have to be modified, you know. Oh, actually, we can post the agenda and we can modify it anytime leading up to the meeting, right? Okay, never mind. Scratch that.
Okay. Next up. Next meeting dates. So before we dive into that, I got an email from Andrew Dennington wanting to, I'm just going to pull up the email and I'll read it to folks. I don't want to get it wrong here. Where did we go here? Here we are. Hi, Ben. I hope this email finds you well. I'm hoping that we can have a joint CPC Select Board meeting on April 2nd or April 16 to begin discussion about strategy for use of CPA community housing monies. When CPC has a chance to select a date, can you please let me know? If you pick a date before March 19th, if you can pick a date before March 19th, that would be ideal. April, yeah, the 2nd and the 16th, I will point out, are both meetings of the select board. One concern that I have is, you know, we've funded projects, historical projects, recreation projects, open space projects. The CPC has never gone and attended an open space preservation meeting nor a recreation meeting. And I'm just concerned about the optics of that. You know, I keep saying select board. I think Andrew also said select board in his email. We're talking about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think we should schedule our next couple of meetings and we should invite the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to our meeting because I'm just concerned with the appearance of, you know, giving them you know, preferential treatment that we haven't given to any other board, committee, or commission in the past. My personal feeling on it. And if others feel differently, by all means, please speak up. Okay. So, sorry, trying to get my calendar here in order. We have not at this point put anything on the calendar beyond town meeting.
Ben, just really quick, I'd like to hear what Ellen and Lisa have to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you two, I'm so sorry. Now there are 3 hands up.
I didn't raise mine when I saw theirs.
Ellen, I see your mic is on.
Sure. So I was just going to suggest a possible alternative would be kind of to prioritize post-town meetings to schedule joint meetings as much as possible with those other committees. I think especially as we've talked about kind of the struggle to get a sense of upcoming projects. And I know that's not for lack of trying on this committee, but that might be another way to possibly do that and to avoid the appearance or reality of giving the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee an audience that the other committees don't have. Oh,
so like at our next upcoming meeting, you know, invite affordable housing at a meeting after that, perhaps invite recreation or
yeah,
good idea.
Exactly.
Good idea.
Lisa, I'm sorry, Ellen, do you have anything further? I'm sorry. Okay. Lisa, your hand was up.
Thank you. So I just wanted to agree with you, Ben. I mean, it's in the minutes. We had talked about this at our last meeting as well, that the trust is no different than any other applicant. And, you know, they're welcome to come and potentially talk about a project or whatnot with us. But we have to keep the same level of standard that we've done for everybody across the board, is to not give the appearance of giving special treatment or, you know, so I think we give them the dates, and they're welcome to come, and, you know, they can talk about what they may or may not want the money for. But I mean, ultimately, we had agreed it's no different than anyone else. And an application is really the next step for them to,
Yeah.
you know, see what's required. So that's all.
In terms of our past practice, we have had folks come in to discuss, you know, prior to submitting an application, to sort of informally sit down with the committee and talk about, you know, is this project fundable? Like the fire truck preservation is a great example. Is it fundable? If it is, how would you recommend we go about it? That kind of thing. So that we've always been open to that, and we would love to have them come in and talk with us about their thoughts on affordable housing projects. Freddie, I see you have your hand up.
I do, and I'm going to speak for something that the CPC should be aware of, and I'm going to speak also somewhat in my role as chair of the Open Space Preservation Commission. So many of you, and not all of you, may know that their town has received Chapter 61 purchase, or supposedly a purchase and sale agreement, which triggers for the Johnson land on Northborough Road, which triggers the right of first refusal. And this has, this parcel is a there's two parcels. It's a high priority for open space preservation, and the Open Space Commission met and decided that we wanted to investigate all options for this, as well as we reached out to Shopsy because we see it as for two reasons: a potential affordable housing project, as well as a joint affordable housing and open space, but also to reach out to all stakeholders, which an email has gone out. The dates will be likely changed, but inviting, you know, conservation, recreation, historical, and I'm not sure of everyone else. And we have an email from Mark Purple saying, the proposed use, if you have any thoughts to share on whether or not the town should attempt to obtain either one or both of these parcels, the proposed use of the property, and any methods to fund such a purchase, please forward these to the select board on or before April 12th, 2024. So the issue here is, you know, the only way to fund this is with CPA funding, and it would take a detailed analysis. And I've done a little bit of a little bit of a brief overview of what could possibly be available to fund this. And I think the CPC wants to weigh in. I think you need to have, you know, I'm not just going to say, oh, we're going to put an application into the CPC and not have the CPC be aware of it. Shopsy, I'm sure. So some of this conversation could, you know, sort of influence any affordable housing trust fund discussion with the CPC, because certainly this is, you know, it's a big price, and at a time when we don't have a ton of funding, but I think some of it could potentially be doable for half of there's two parcels, and if both parcels have to be purchased at, you know, that's the right of first refusal for both. I don't think it's doable at 4 million, but if they can be separated into, the town can put an offer in on one, that is definitely within the ability maybe to fund. The ability maybe, you know, but it also, you know, would take it would be a big, it would tie up most of the CPA funds for the foreseeable future for a project where we have been to do something meaningful for housing. So I think if you have that, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. It's a little bit confusing, all the moving parts. April 12th. to get this done, you'd need to meet before then and have a conversation with the other players that are interested.
Before I throw out a date, I see Kristen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think it's just maybe two statements. So, and I might, Freddie, I'm sorry, I literally glanced at this email right before the meeting, but it looks like Dorianne is organizing a session on this because Recreation sent out to see who might want to attend. I'll when I stop talking, I'll find that email if you're not sure what I'm talking about. Like I can't talk and look at things up on the computer at the same time, but I'll find that because it just can't. I literally just saw it before the meeting. It came out today. And the second thing I'll just say is that to your point, like it's a lot of money, but I'm grateful. I guess I'll publicly thank Lisa at that particular meeting where this came up. I felt, and I'm not saying this is fact, my feeling was that the board was moving to a position where they were just going to outright say no. And again, once again, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say not talking to other committees involved. And then Lisa, followed by others, said, well, wait a second, hold on. Like, let's just at least take a breath and not make, I don't mean to speak for you, Lisa, but basically she suggested that we instead do get people together and get feedback before we hastily make a decision. So I just want to throw that out there. And Ben, I throw that out there because I'm going to look now. There is a separate meeting being scheduled around this. And again, I just learned about it through Recreation tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, give me a second.
I saw the email from Dorianne. I think she's proposing either the 27th or the 28th.
Those dates will be changed.
Okay. So.
Oh, this is the meeting you're talking about. Okay, sorry.
I'm going to suggest if we can meet April 4th, that Thursday, first Thursday in April, that would give us time to put together correspondence, regarding the Johnston property. Does that work for folks? April 4? So we're hoping the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee can attend one of our meetings. And then also, now that town meeting is going to be over, by the time we hit April, it's time to actually take on the work of putting together an actual written set of regulations or rules about our application process. And I think that will be an important part of the agenda for a couple, 2-3 meetings. So for that reason, I would suggest a second meeting in April if folks were available on the 25th.
Kristen, when is school vacation week in April?
That's what I was just looking.
It's the week before that, 15th through 19th.
Yeah.
So I'm fine
I'm
with
sorry,
that.
Ben. So you said the 25th?
Yeah, so the 4th and the 25th in April, we could invite the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee to either one of those meetings and get them on the agenda, and we could also begin our discussion of codifying our application procedure and the evaluation procedure for applications.
Would those both be at 7?
Yes. Yeah.
Then both work for me.
Okay. Kristen, your hand's up. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, that's leftover.
Okay.
And if I can make a suggestion, I would, where there's probably going to be some information coming at us regarding, potentially regarding Northborough Road, I would suggest putting the trust off for a bigger discussion on them wanting to potentially transfer the monies out until probably the second meeting.
Okay. Yep. Good point. Good point. Sorry, I'm get at my calendar before I forget. Otherwise.
And if it's all right, there's just something I wanted to bring up since we're kind of talking about scheduling and meeting coming up. One thing that we didn't talk about tonight was that there is another CPC related article on town meeting. It's a citizens petition that we had discussed previously to raise the threshold, from majority to 2/3.
Yes.
I haven't followed it super closely. I did watch the advisory meeting. I don't know, was that a week ago or 2 weeks ago, in which they were voting on the warrant articles, and I believe they voted unanimously against it. But just internally, I wasn't sure, if we have a pre-town meeting, if it's something that we would want to take a vote on, so that if people ask us, what our feeling is, whether or not we want to take a position on it ahead of town meeting. But I just thought I'd raise it since we didn't discuss it tonight.
Thank you, Grant. As I understand, town council has opined that the warrant article is actually illegal. It almost sounded like he was recommending that the select board pull the article, which they have the authority to do with a citizen's petition article if the article itself is not legal. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but I think that will certainly be brought up at town meeting, that even if the town elects to pass this, it would be illegal and it would be stopped by the AG's office. But I think conducting a vote against it costs us nothing, and to have that in our back pocket if the question is asked, Grant, I think is a great idea.
Great. Yeah, I had heard, I think at that advisory meeting, I didn't hear town council's opinion, but I heard that there were questions about its legality, which I was happy to hear.
Yeah.
That was just something I was thinking about. So thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, we can't really do the vote tonight. We don't have it on the agenda. Let's get on we'll put it on the agenda for our meeting right before town meeting.
Great.
Thank you. All right, so we have 2 meetings scheduled for the 4th and the 25th. I will just give myself a note here. Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I will extend an invitation for the 25th to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee to join us. Next up, chair report. Nothing that we haven't already covered during the meeting. We do have some minutes. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at those?
I did, Ben. I had a change on the February 24th, just one.
Okay.
Kristen's listed as in attendance and as absent.
Oh, and
That was the only one.
Yep.
I have just a couple minor ones on the 24th. I also, forgive me, I can't remember which ones are we reviewing tonight. Did we do the February 6th ones as well? Or did we not do those?
Did we do those at the last meeting? Freddie, do you recall?
Nope, I don't, sorry.
Okay, let's continue with the minutes of the 24th, and then we can paw into that. You said you had a couple of changes on the 24th?
Yeah, just a couple minor ones. For the first page, right below all the committee or all the people in attendance.
I'm sorry, Grant, can I interrupt for half a second?
Yeah.
It just occurs to me that Betsy is not here. And I need to, Freddie, are you recording these edits, or I can also open it up in on my computer and make the edits?
Oh, I can share my screen if that would help.
I wasn't making the edits. I don't do the minutes.
Right, okay. Actually, so February 24th, let's see if we are up to date on minutes and if we can table these. I think that'd probably be the best thing to do here.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Looking at the meeting after the last meeting would tell you which minutes you approved, right?
Right. Sorry, I just lost.
Well, did you do that at the Saturday, February 24th meeting though, since that was kind of a weird?
Yeah. Let's see. Adjournment.
Should be the one posted on the website, I think. It's probably the easiest way to figure out.
No, because minutes could be approved and she may not have sent them in.
The draft minutes at the bottom say they were tabled. January 31st and February 6th were tabled. It says it at the page 5 of the draft minutes. For
the ones on the 31st were tabled. The ones for the 18th were approved as amended. So we tabled the ones on the 31st. So it was the 31st, the 24th. We're allowed to be 3 meetings out. Is that right? I don't even recall.
Town clerk wants us by 45 days, so I'd probably do the January ones.
Yeah. January 31st.
Can we just do them on Saturday and send edits to Betsy in advance?
I think that makes sense because
Yeah,
this is gonna be hard for Betsy.
let's just do it that way. So could folks for both the 31st and then the 24th, forward their edits to Betsy, so that we can be all set to go on Saturday, just to,
And we also have the 6th of February. So it's 3.
oh yeah, thank you. All right, so
I
let's,
guess I'm just maybe, so how many meetings, because it's 3 meetings, I think, is an open meeting law violation. So I just want to make sure that January 31st, February 6th, February something, and this one, so that would be 4 meetings, right? Am I doing that right?
Including this one, that's 4. Yep, that's what it says on the site.
So I think, I don't know if I have it, I don't think I have any edits on the 31st, but I think we do have to do something with the 30th, or we're supposed to do something with the 31st tonight.
does anyone
know.
in attendance tonight have edits that they'd like to see made to the minutes of the 31st?
I had some, but I'll see if, I mean, they might not be all that substantive.
If they don't alter the meeting,
Ben, could we just hear Alan's minutes and then approve the minutes with her edits? And then Betsy can just add them. She can forward her edits to Betsy and she can just add them and then we can be
That's-
done.
great idea, Lisa. Are you comfortable with that, Ellen?
That works for me.
Great.
We can also post as draft minutes if we need to.
Yeah,
These are draft minutes, so like, yeah, that's another option if we need to.
I think this will get us caught up enough that on Saturday, if we all forward our proposed changes to Betsy, we can take care of this very quickly and get us all caught up. So do you want to run through yours just real quickly, Ellen, your changes to the minutes of the 31st?
Sure. So I'm just at the top on who was in attendance. I'm added, it's Kirsten Lavalde, Vice Chair. I'm non-committee in attendance where it says Catherine McKee, added Trials Committee Chair. Non-committee attendees via Zoom, and Marcy Jones is Advisory Committee Vice Chair. Kevin Miller, Southborough Historical Commission Chair. And beyond that, the bottom of page 2 changed Southborough Golf Club to golf course. One substantive question I had on page 4 in the 3rd paragraph, the 3rd line, we're saying she believes it is the CPC's job to vet a project and put it on the annual warrant if it is available per state law for CPC funding, and there are enough funds in the CPA buckets. Continues the word available.
It's a funny word there.
So I just wanted to make sure we're being clear on what we're saying there. If it's
I think allowable.
allowable. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then the 3rd paragraph from the bottom, also on page 4. I just wanted to clarify in the middle of that paragraph, it starts, the management company is there to maintain the golf course, and question could be raised why 5 million was not enough. I think we could just add the context. I said why the 5 million the town spent to acquire the golf course was not enough. Just to give the context of the 5 million that we're talking about there.
That works.
Okay.
Yeah.
The top of page 6.
I'm sorry, Ellen, just to back up to that last point, because I think these are all really good points. Was your point, you said to elaborate, like meaning why the 5 million wasn't enough? I just want to make sure we're, and you said we should expand on why not, or so I just want to make sure we're agreeing on whatever language is being
Yes.
inserted versus leaving it to Betsy.
Sorry, so what I was saying is that just saying what the 5 million was.
Got
So
it.
it doesn't talk previously in there about the town acquiring it for the price of 5 million. So just adding the words, the town spent to acquire the golf course.
Got it. Got it.
So
Thank
that
you.
people know what that is, but not saying the reasons of why it's not enough.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, the top of page 6. Frederica Gillespie spoke as a member of the Open Space Preservation,
Oh.
like the word conservation.
Mhm.
And the top of page 7, just in the $2,000, there's some extra zeros after the decimal point. There's 3 that we can get rid of. Further down on page 7, bond warrant articles, and the second paragraph starting Benjamin Smith mentioned. In the middle of that paragraph, it says this takes away the CPC's authority to oversee the expenditure of the funds once the bank has been paid. I think that should be grant or something else other than the word bank.
I think, yeah, I think a period after the word funds, and that would end the sentence.
Perfect.
I see we're also talking about the language on bond articles where the word bank may have been used. I can see where the confusion came from.
Makes sense. I think that's it.
Oh, perfect. So if you wouldn't mind forwarding that to Betsy, and then with that, is there a motion to approve the minutes of our January 31st, 2024 meeting as amended?
So moved.
Second.
And a second, I'm sorry, who's the second?
Kristen.
Kristen, thank you. And I will call the roll. Kristen Laval,
Laval, yes.
Lisa Braccio,
Yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
Grant Farrington,
Yes.
Ben Smith is yes. Okay. And yeah, and we will be able to take care of the rest of them quickly before town meeting. Oh, and that brings us to our favorite motion of the evening. Unless anybody has, if we don't have a other business as may arise, but if anybody has anything that they'd like to bring up to the committee, and barring that, if somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. We'll call the roll. Kristen Laval,
Laval, yes.
Lisa Braccio,
Yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
Grant Farrington,
Yes.
and Ben Smith is yes. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
See you at town meeting.
Yeah. See you at town meeting.
Good night.
Good.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.